Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar for the 2023 Identity in Practice Report. Today, you'll be hearing from our President and CEO, Eva Velasquez, as well as our Research Manager, Tiye McKethen, as they discuss the various findings from phases 1 and 2 of the Identity in Practice Report. And without any further ado, I'm going to pass it right on off to Eva to get us started.
Thanks very much, Tim. I appreciate the intro. And Tiye, if you could go ahead and hit the next slide, please. The first thing I really want to do is welcome our partners to this call, to this webinar, because without you, we couldn't finish this really important work. So very briefly, I'll just, as a reminder, let folks know who we are. The Identity Theft Resource Center was founded all the way back in 1999. And at the heart of our mission, we are a victim services organization. We provide free, no cost, recovery, identity fraud recovery, and risk minimization services to the public. And we help just about anybody from victims and consumers to businesses and even government. And we realized in our quest to make sure that we were really helping to solve this problem that we had to get more heavily involved in not only research, but in research that is something that we can activate, that we can help make our programs better and just help the victims and consumers that we serve in a way that works for them. And next slide, please. So the background on this, the why we are here, this really came to light, the issue of being culturally competent and understanding that culture matters, when we received a grant back in 2018. And this was a grant to help with accessibility issues on our website. We understood that we wanted to do a better job of helping the blind, low vision, and deaf, hard of hearing population. And we were able to do that successfully, thank goodness. But what came out of that were some learnings, not only about accessibility, but about culture and how culture matters. And we realized that this was not unique to simply that one subset of the population. This is something that we have to look at very holistically. And at the same time, we were seeing an increase in our own data in the individuals who were contacting the ITRC that self-identified as Black or of African descent. And that was compared to the population, what we would expect to see in the population numbers. And we thought we need to understand why this is happening, what's going on here. And in comes Tiye McKethen to do a research dive and tell us what does the research tell us? And we realized it doesn't exist. We need to do this on our own. And from that, this project was born, this wanting to build our learning, not only research for research sake, but to have something that we can take action on, something that we can help with our programming and make sure, again, that we're helping people in a way that works for them and that resonates with them and that they can take action on. So with that background, I'm going to hand it off to Tiye and let her go over the phase 1 highlights. And in fact, the highlights for this entire research project and product. Take it away, Tiye.
Thank you so much, Eva. So we've learned a lot over the last 18 months, including learning the interactions of identity crime victims in the Black community and how they reported to law enforcement. In our phase 1 quantitative section of the research, only 50% of Black victims of identity crime reported the incident to local law enforcement or larger groups, and that was enlightening to learn. In that same study, we learned that 89% of respondents indicate that children are at risk of identity theft. And further in that data, there is no differentiation between men who feel that way and women that feel that way. And 45% of identity victims discovered they were victimized within the last 2 years during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is actually relatively high for not only the Black community, but communities overall. Majority of victims indicated that the misuse of their information was incredibly stressful at 58%, and a quarter indicated that they were moderately stressed throughout the entire process. The reason why that sets us up so well is that it also helps us understand how individuals that were victimized were affected during COVID-19. So there were the pandemic funds. And one victim of a scam in Philadelphia talked about how hard it was to even be able to interact with the pandemic fund because someone was already collecting off of their name and social security number. So to this day, they indicated that they are still fighting if they try to get unemployment, if they try to get any of the pandemic relief, they're still being investigated for fraud, which does not allow them to go through the process smoothly. And in that same process, there's also the issue of knowing who victimized you and a little bit of a concern of what will happen to those individuals. So 56% of the participants in the qualitative research were victimized by strangers, but 40% by people that they know, with 13 out of 55 participants by family members, which is fairly high. In that same space of victimization, there's already a lot of repeat victimization. So discrimination, socioeconomic factors, like where you live, how much money you make, age, cultural norms, and just a general lack of understanding on PII maintenance all contribute to the high rates of initial and recurring victimization. So 83 to 86% dependent on the city that we were studying, victims were victimized more than once. And in our phase one, we also learned that third tertiary victimization was also relatively high, which is terrifying when it comes to going through the process of remediation. So in the remediation process, two of my three favorite points I have here are the lack of initial ease towards the resolution process. So dealing with multiple parties adds complexity, having to deal with identity theft sources, banks, lawyers, credit agencies, credit bureaus, also means that 25% of the cases remained unresolved and only 20% with a partial resolution that did not fully address the issue. And partial resolution can mean that they were able to fix their credit, but they weren't able to get the amount lost back, or they were able to get the amount lost back, but they weren't able to fix their credit. 11% reported immediate resolution with minimum barriers. And this is something that Eva loves to point on when we're discussing it with outside agencies. I'd really, really like it if we can touch on it more, Eva.
Well, when it comes to financial literacy, one of the things that I'm always noticing is we look at identity management as this tangent. Oh, it's a nice thing to have. It should be a part of any financial literacy education or process. And I disagree. I think it has to be a fundamental component. So much of how we navigate and use our identity impacts our finances and impacts our access to credit and just all of those things that are intertwined. And so I'm constantly talking with organizations and individuals who have a personal mission of bringing financial literacy to their communities, to their constituents. And I let them know that this type of understanding of your identity, how you use, maintain, protect, and recover your identity is a critical part of financial literacy, not just something nice to have and to add on at the end. And I hope that the ITRC can be a part of providing those resources. I don't think that the financial literacy organizations have the expertise or the time to put this type of information together themselves. And I'm not asking that. We have it. We have the information. We're happy to give it to you. So I hope that even some of the partners will share this within their networks and let folks know, hey, the ITRC wants to give you this information. We have it compiled. We want to share it.
So that really tethers us very well to impact of victimization, which the big main 3 points was emotional and psychological impacts, financial impacts, and socioeconomic and livelihood impacts. And one of my favorite quotes from the report in general talks about the socioeconomic and livelihood impacts, which is that an individual felt like they were consistently being kept at the bottom after having identity theft. So they couldn't rise up from the situation that they were in. They couldn't level up financially. They can't shop. They can't move outside of their region. They can't provide for their families. And this is part of the overall complexity of consequences for being a victim, which includes poor credit scores, financial instability, restricted accounts, and an incredibly lengthy resolution process that affects impoverished communities, especially those impacted disproportionately to COVID-19. So 53% of participants detailed the mental anguish of managing the aftermath. And those victimized by family members were affected so much that it led to negative coping behaviors, but there was also positive coping strategies like seeking counseling and engaging in meditation, which was present in the qualitative process. Identity theft impacts income, credit, and financial resource access, and can also cause missed financial opportunities. And individuals who may have had their identity stolen to the point where someone committed crimes in their names, it can cause arrests or being sued due to those criminal activities. So it's a large, large issue. And other parts were just barriers faced with resolving cases. So Black victims already felt like they encountered unhelpful or dismissive responses from financial institutions. And there was a concern over when they started the resolution process that it was another part of a scam. And resolving the incident took, repetitive multiple interactions with various institutions, extensive paperwork, and waiting periods. Our biggest recommendations to not only the industry that we work in, but especially to our partners and our future partners is involve Black victims, create equitable access, and help us provide community-based education and awareness, which means giving Black victims a seat at the table, which we have done here and now, by involving them in the process of understanding not only their victimization, but understanding what a successful path forward can look like for their communities. So we want to promote equitable access to financial resources and services, particularly for low-income individuals and communities, by addressing socioeconomic disparities and financial education, but also developing and implementing community-based education and awareness programs to disseminate directly and within Black communities. These programs should be tailored to address the unique challenges of those communities and aim to increase knowledge and understanding, and they should always be culturally competent to be reflective of the needs of the community and not the needs of institutions. We thank you guys so much for participating with us over the last 18 months in this research. And we look forward to working with you all in the next phase of it, where we go into building these resources and creating assistance that is specific for Black people, and something that really involves equity and having a seat at the table at every step, not when we think it will benefit everybody, but when we know we need to hear what is going on. So we thank you so much. And I, again, thank all of our partners, Chicago, Atlanta, and Philadelphia. They were the best cities for us to be in, and we hope to be with them again in 2024.
And I will just jump in. I was starting to say a thank you after you concluded, Tiye, but I had myself on mute. Typical. I was trying not to step on Tiye's words and make sure it was silent, and then I was talking to myself. But I echo Tiye's sentiment in that we can't do this work without you. We thank you very much for your partnership. And for those of you who are listening to a recording of this presentation, please, if there are any questions that come up, any thoughts that you have, just learnings, anything that you want to share with us, reach out. We will make sure to get it on the calendar, and we'll make sure to continue these conversations. And the last point I'll make to Tiye's point is we fully understand that in different steps in the process, sometimes we need to do more listening than talking, and we're happy to do that. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.